Thank you, Erica. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here and just sharing this space with all of you amazing failures. And I'm an amazing failure, and at the same time and simultaneously, we're all amazing successes as well. I'm not one for labels. Labels kind of annoy me. So, I try and confuse them quite a bit by saying, I can be a failure and I can be a success. And these things don't necessarily exist at opposite ends of a spectrum. And that was the first thing I thought about when I talked about failure is like, so what? I am a failure. But, we tend to wallow in the negative, but not spend much time thinking about the positive. But I'll touch on that as I go on. But I guess, so my philosophy. So it's not something that I made up myself. When I told someone I was talking about this, she said to me, "Oh, have you seen this guy?" She told me his name, Gabe something or other. And he talks about failure as well. And he used the word philosophy, and I thought, I like that. So now I've covered the IP side of things. I haven't stolen it from him, don't report me. But I also did a Google to check, did anyone else own it? And I found an American sitcom, which apparently, ironically, probably wasn't very successful, because otherwise we'd have all known that, right? But a couple of days ago, I was actually listening to a podcast, Oprah podcast, and she talked about something Maya Angelou used to say to her. And Maya used to say, if you know better, you do better. And generally, I find that what I took from that was, we know better if we've learned from a mistake or a failure that we've made. Or we've learned from a failure or a mistake someone else has made, because we actually don't live long enough to make them all ourselves. So you really need to learn from other people's mistakes and failures as well. And I really liked that. So if we know better, we do better. So when you know better and when you have had a failure, what have you learned and how are you going to use it to do better? So that really stuck with me. So we're here because of Link, and I'm part of the Link Cultivator program this year, and I've just met some of the most amazing people, and they've given me some great guidance, and we've helped each other in different aspects of our leadership. But I thought I'd share a little bit with you about my community leadership journey. Well, not too much, but I guess to start with this, who we are is how we lead, and this is who I am. So my first community leadership role was being the firstborn of 6 in Ireland, and you can see my dad's wonderful 80s haircut there. And my sister will be very glad she's not in the same country that picture has been shown at. In the middle, me and my fully grown siblings who survived my command and control leadership for so many years. I'm sure they're all glad I'm on the other side of the world as well. Joking. They love me really. And then this is my family here. So myself, my husband James, and our 4-year-old daughter Cara. So we co-lead our own little community. But as regards, I guess, my actual community leadership, started in youth club, and being president of the youth club in rural Ireland, great crack altogether. Then onto sporting organisations, so being involved as a leader from being on the pitch, actually playing, and leading in that way, being an administrator and being a coach. And then when I came over here to New Zealand, getting involved in kind of the more cultural side of things, so being on the board of the Irish Society, being involved in establishing Gaelic Games Club here, and in more recent years, things like volunteering in non-profits, and I was involved in starting a government women's network as well, which was really, really cool, and Link Cultivator now as well. So it's just, there's been a lot of ups and downs over the years. And actually, as we talk about failure, and you talked about immigrating, Preston, I realise, I guess, one of the biggest things that I've ever done is probably leave my home, which couldn't be any further away, and take those risks. And for some reason, it never comes into my head, as this big thing, this big risk that I took, but probably because I know I'm in the right place. So that's why it doesn't really come up that much. So anyway, what's this? Yeah, so heart rate monitor. So, I mean, I love an analogy. I love a good analogy or a metaphor. I always confuse the two, but You know what I mean? Yeah. But, and literally, the heart rate monitor, it's a symbol of life, right? So it shows the heartbeat, the up and down, the ebbs and flows. But I also think it really represents well how success and failure actually feature in our life. What happens, we've all watched ER, what happens when that line goes flat and there's the big long beep? You're dead. There's no live. There's no life, right? But if you look along this heart rate monitor or this analogy for life, then you have ups and downs. You have ebbs and flows. You have successes and failures. And they're not at opposite ends of the spectrum. The success wasn't being born and the failure wasn't dying. There's lots of ups and downs in between. So my insight, I guess, when I see that is to think that the ups and downs are part of life. The successes and failures are part of life. It's how we respond to them is what matters. And that kind of leads me in then to tell you a little bit around, I guess, my philosophy and the things that I've learned from failure and share a few little stories then along the way. So number one, nothing is permanent. And kind of echoing a little bit of what Preston said around success is impermanent, and neither is failure. And we're these multifaceted beings where we can at the same time be a failure and a success. And then the whole permanent thing is really that we're so guilty of when we have a success that we don't really stop to acknowledge it. It's straight on to the next thing, so it doesn't last very long. But yet when there's a failure, oh God, you're wallowing for days or weeks, so we choose how much time we spend on each of these things. But technically, neither of them are permanent. I can think back to, I remember 2006 playing in a Gaelic Football All-Ireland final, which we won. And my God, did we celebrate that success. But the following year, we were up in the next grade and playing at the top ladies division, top women's Gaelic football division in Ireland, and we got beaten. And we got pretty badly beaten. And I remember, for a while after, I remember a particular pass that I made that a forward of theirs intercepted, and it probably was the start of the demise. And for quite a while, that was quite difficult to take, but it didn't last forever. I reflect now, and actually I pick some of the happier moments of that year and that season and the people that I played with. So I guess the learning from that is it isn't permanent. So even when you think that the failure is pretty bad and the feelings are bad, know that it won't last forever and take some peace from that. I am a failure versus I failed. This is one that I had a good experience of not too long ago. So I had a 7:30 meeting. I never have a 7:30, in the morning. And I don't know what I was thinking when I booked that one in. But anyway, I accepted it, completely forgot about it, forgot to check my calendar, and forgot about the meeting. And I was standing at home just after breakfast, phone rings. I'm like, who's ringing me at 7:30 in the morning? And didn't know the number. Picked up the phone. Hi, Fiona. Oh, no. I'll tell you what happened. I could feel my stomach drop to my toes. I could feel my shoulders and my neck tense. I could feel my throat close up. I could feel the colour draining from my face and the heat rising in it at the same time. I don't know how, but I swear to God, that's how it felt. And Preston, a few more in the room, and if you're familiar with Brené Brown's work, you'll know she calls that a shame storm. And oh my God, was I going through a shame storm right in that moment. I was just, it wasn't pleasant. But only for the knowledge that within the couple of minutes after that call, I realised and I was able to distinguish that the self-talk that I was doing, that you're so stupid, you're such a dumbass, I can't believe you did that, you're so unreliable, I was able to shift that from, you are not those things, you did something stupid, you did something unreliable. So separating who I am from the thing that I did. And that was really powerful and really enabled me to move on much quicker when I might have wallowed in that previously and been so embarrassed for like weeks. I was able to move through that much, much quicker. So separate who you are from the things that you do. It's all about perspective. A couple of things to that. Number one, I think for me is that what's my success could be your failure. What's your failure could be my success, and vice versa. We all start at different points. What your 100% is going to be different to mine. So bear that in mind when you are talking about success and failure as well, particularly if you are in leadership roles, and knowing the impact of you talking about failure and measuring people's failure can be detrimental. The other thing about perspective, I'll give you an example. I was working on a project for the implementation of a piece of technology, a new system or whatever, and I was doing the whole change management side of things, and I had change managed my ass off. I had spent a couple of weeks, I stood in front of about 500 people over about 3 weeks to say how amazing the system was, how it was going to change their lives, to get their buy-in, to really make sure we embedded that change. And a week before it went live, it was pulled. Not permanently, but it was, I had no timeline. I was told there was some major defects found that hadn't been tested properly, and they would have to go back to redevelopment. And I know it wasn't my failure, but I had stood in front of 500 people and sold them this new system, and I had to figure out what that meant for me. And again, I think the same feelings as I described before. I won't subject you to that again. But yeah, there was a couple of days where I was like feeling very sorry for myself. You know, a real little pity party going on and thinking, right, you know, what am I going to do? You know, this has happened to me. Oh God, this is awful. And then I kind of went, okay, right, let's shift the perspective. So I guess I'm quite when it comes to learning, I'm a kinesthetic person, so I like movement. So I literally took a step out of the situation and almost took a step to the side and thought about perspective and how I looked at that situation and thought, okay, this looks quite different from this perspective. What were the other benefits that were gained by all that work that I did? What else came out of it? Was the only thing that this new system was going live? What other behavior did we influence? What were the other positive things? And being able to step away and take a different perspective enabled me to see the other positive things that I had achieved and the team had achieved, and help us reset a course for actually how are we going to move forward? What can we control? What have we done already? And used that as a way to move on. Talk about failure. Well, I've done quite a bit of that now, haven't I? But what I mean is, in that same situation that I just talked about before, being able to talk to the other team members and some of the people that I trusted that we had delivered that change management conversation to around, well, what is your perspective? What else did you get out of those sessions? So that gave us a new insight. The other thing is, as a leader, we have if you are working in a leadership position, or actually everyone's a leader, right? Because we all lead from where we are. It's around role modeling that we need to talk about failure, especially if there are people that look up to you, whether you are a peer or actually they report to you, because they need to know that it's okay to fail, that people who are successful are also failures and experience failure. They need to be in a space and know that it is a safe space to drop the ball and that they're not going to lose their jobs. From a psychological safety perspective and a mental health perspective. I'd rather fail than fail to act. You're not living, you know, if as far as I'm concerned, there have been times in my life that I have not done things because I was afraid to fail, and they're probably the things that I regret the most. The things that I failed I probably don't regret them at all, because I have learned something. I think about times I've applied for jobs where I didn't get them, and initially I might have went, oh, why didn't I? And then I went, actually, you know what? I didn't even want that job, but I needed to go through the process of applying for that job to learn that. Or I needed to do that job that I really hated and was a really bad period of my life, or that change management experience. I've taken so much away from that. So I'm glad that those fails happened to me. But I'd rather fail, as I said, than fail to act. I don't want to be on my deathbed and look back and say I should have done that and I didn't because I was afraid to fail. And that's not the example that I want to set for my daughter or for anyone that I work with. So I'll leave you with this. It's a quote that Brené Brown uses in her book, Daring Greatly. It's from Theodore Roosevelt, and it talks about being the man in the arena, or the woman, and how life is about getting in the arena, putting yourself out there and being prepared to fail. And if you're not in the arena, if you're going to go in the arena, you are going to fail. If you're going to live, you're going to fail. And there's nowhere I would rather be than be in the arena. Thank you.